This is how the journey begins. It's medieval Japan, 1584. You arrive in a tiny village named Miyamoto. Your mother names you Benosuke, but she doesn't survive the birth. The identity of your true father remains a mystery. Fortunately, she had remarried, and her new husband, Shinmen Munisai, steps in to raise you. Munisai is a complex man, a swordsman of immense talent, yet a cruel and abusive stepfather. You clashed with him constantly. The fighting was relentless until, at the age of 6, he simply kicked you out. You went to live with your uncle, a serene Buddhist monk who offered you calm and shelter for several years. You turned 12. One ordinary day, while walking through the nearby town, a wooden sign caught your eye. It was an open challenge for a sword duel, issued by a man named Arima Kihei, who sought to test his skill against any brave soul. You didn't hesitate. Grabbing a long stick, you found him and accepted the challenge. The duel began. Kihei drew his steel blade. You circled, your stick at the ready. He charged. You swung with all your might, and the force of the blow sent his sword flying from his hand. Confusion and a flash of fear crossed his face. Instinct took over. You struck his head, and he crumpled to the ground. Your first duel was won. A victory. Yes, but he was not dead. Dueling, it turned out, was intoxicating. But your uncle disapproved, urging you to abandon violence and seek spiritual enlightenment instead. You respected your uncle's wishes for a time. Then, at age 15, a warrior named Tadashima Akiyama challenged you. You accepted, and this time, you killed him. It became clear your life would not be the quiet path your uncle had envisioned. You left his home, changed your name to Miyamoto Musashi, and set out to become a legendary warrior. Puberty was working its magic. You shot up to 6 feet tall, towering over your contemporaries. You were stronger and larger than almost everyone you met. And you came of age just as the century-long Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States period, was drawing to a close. The entire nation was choosing sides for the final confrontation between Tokugawa Ieyasu and Ishida Mitsunari. You and your stepfather, Munisai, with whom you had somewhat reconciled, chose the winning side, Tokugawa. You fought in some minor engagements, yet you missed the main event, the Battle of Sekigahara. Hundreds of years later, a biographer would decide your story was too dull. They would invent a glorious lie, claiming you fought for the losing side at Sekigahara, thus establishing your mythos as a romantic, wandering ronin. This fabricated history would fuel arguments for centuries, upsetting people on the internet who would feel compelled to write angry comments at historical stickmen with glasses. You survived the end of the Civil War, but your appetite for combat remained. You began to wander the country, constantly searching for worthy opponents. You remembered your stepfather had once found fame by defeating the headmaster of a renowned fencing school in Kyoto. You decided to travel there and challenge them yourself. It was 1604. You were 20 years old. You found the school, run by the Yoshioka family, and issued your challenge. The new head was Yoshioka Seijuro. Still smarting from his predecessor's defeat by your stepfather, he thirsted for revenge. He agreed to a duel with wooden swords, naming the time and place. His barely contained fury gave you an idea. What would be the most disrespectful move possible? You didn't show up on time. You made him wait for hours. When you finally arrived, his face was a mask of pure rage. Seeing you, he charged. Blinded by the dishonor of your disrespect, you quickly prepared your wooden blade. As he came within range, you struck his shoulder, shattering it instantly. Another duel won. His students carried him away. Upon his recovery, the disgraced master abandoned swordsmanship and became a monk. You felt satisfied, proving yourself the equal of your stepfather, and you prepared to leave Kyoto. But the Yoshioka family was consumed by shame. They demanded satisfaction. Saijuro's brother, Denshichiro, challenged you next. You accepted. You arrived, dueled, and with a single strike to the head, perhaps a little too hard, you killed him. The Yoshioka school was falling apart. You had dispatched 2 of their masters. Their only remaining hope was the new, 12-year-old headmaster, Shichiro. They sent you one final challenge, a duel against the boy. You remembered killing a man at 12, so you considered the possibility they were serious. Still, something felt wrong. This time, You didn't show up late. You arrived early and concealed yourself behind a tree. Your instincts were correct. The Yoshioka arrived with a massive mob of students, all armed with bows, swords, and spears. It wasn't a duel. It was an execution trap. You waited until the ambushes were fully positioned. Then, you leaped out and sliced the 12-year-old boy in half before anyone could react. A brief, awkward silence followed. Then, the rest of the mob charged. You fought them off, carving a path through the students, and escaped the city alive. You had just destroyed one of Japan's most prestigious fencing schools. You were officially famous. Leaving Kyoto, you heard whispers of a Buddhist monk nearby, a legendary master of the spear. You wanted to test your skill against him. You traveled to Nara and found him. He was 81 years old. He instead offered his disciple, Okuzoi, as your opponent. Unlike the perpetually furious Yoshioka, these Buddhist monks were calm and respectful. You won a friendly duel. No one was killed. Everyone remained cool. You left Nara and continued wandering. Somehow, you reconnected with your stepfather, Munisai. You were both adults now. He saw your remarkable skill and perhaps regretted his past treatment. He began to train you in his esoteric fighting style, using a sword and a jite, a parrying iron, simultaneously. You absorbed his teaching and applied it to your own emerging two-sword style. You were 23, wandering the Iga prefecture, when a samurai named Shishido challenged you. His weapon was the kusarigama, a sickle attached to a heavy chain. You agreed. The duel began with Shishido attacking from a distance, swinging his chain. You realized he intended to wrap it around your sword, disarm you, and then rush in for the kill with the sickle. You searched for a rhythm in his movements. Your ultra instincts flared. You saw the pattern. The moment he launched the chain again, you rushed under it, closed the distance, and sliced his chest. He died instantly. Another win. You were becoming exceptional at dueling, but this relentless winning amplified your fame, and that fame began to attract increasingly stronger opponents. They sought you out to make their own names. The first was Muso Gonosuke, an arrogant warrior who, like you, was on a quest for the toughest fights. He was a master of the bow staff. He attacked without warning. You countered his strike with a new technique you called the Guji-do and disarmed him. Humiliated, he ran away to a Shinto monastery to contemplate his failure. He developed a new style of fighting using a shorter staff, the jo. He found you again. This second match was much harder, perhaps too close to call. You declared it a draw, but Muso told everyone he had won and trademarked his new fighting style, Shinto Muso Ryu. His primary marketing was the claim of having defeated you, and his school lasted for centuries on that reputation alone. Next, you fought and defeated 2 men at once in Edo. This made you even more famous, finally drawing the attention of the country's greatest swordsman, Sasaki Kojiro. You received an invitation to duel Kojiro on Ganryu Island on the 13th of April, 1612. Kojiro was a massive man who wielded the nodachi, a long, heavy sword. He was the biggest opponent you had ever faced, and he was universally recognized as the best swordsman in the land. This was the toughest fight of your life, a duel where one of you would likely not survive. You needed a serious plan to stack the odds in your favor. On the morning of the duel, you waited until the sun was high. You finally headed to the shore, boarded a small boat, and instructed the oarsman to take his time. You grabbed one of his spare oars and began carving it into the shape of a sword. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, you finally told the man to bring you to shore. You spotted Kojiro. He was visibly enraged by your disrespect. As you stepped onto the beach, he rushed forward, spitting fire. He glanced at the boat oar in your hand. He became even angrier, drew his magnificent sword, and dramatically threw the scabbard to the ground. You smiled. "You have already lost," you said. "A samurai who throws away his scabbard has no intention of leaving alive." He charged with his signature, swallow cut. The massive blade narrowly missed, slicing the headband from your head. A terrifyingly close call. You immediately jumped back, positioning yourself with the blazing setting sun at your back. He squinted, struggling to track you against the blinding light. As he fought to see, you saw your opening, lunged forward, and struck him square on the head with the boat oar sword. He fell to the sand, dead. His students looked furious. You needed to leave immediately. Someone, you thought, should probably rename this island. This fight would surely be remembered. Everyone learned that you had beaten Sasaki Kojiro. You were now the most famous, the greatest swordsman in the entire land. You tried to capitalize on this fame by opening your own fencing school. Turns out, running a school was miserable. You shut it down. For the next 2 decades, you worked on random assignments for various lords. You were a construction supervisor for a while. You fought for the shogun, putting down rebellions. You adopted children, one of whom committed seppuku, which brought you great sadness. You fought a few more duels, but by now, no one dared to use real swords against you. You had earned your legendary status. Your kill count stood at 61 duels. Time flew. You were 48 and living in Kumamoto. When you finally discovered your true passion, it wasn't fighting at all. It was painting and poetry. Still, when you were 53, you had to take a break to help your lord put down yet another rebellion. You were knocked off your horse by a rock, which was a miserable experience. So you returned to writing and painting. You penned a document on martial arts and military strategy called the Hyoho Sanjugo. You attempted to distill 40 years of combat knowledge for future generations of warriors. What was this strange burning sensation in your hands? Oh God, the pain was spreading. You had developed debilitating neuralgia. You gave up the life of luxury and service and moved into a cave named Rigando, where you lived alone. There, you began your final masterpiece, the Gorin no Sho, or the Book of 5 Rings. This was your ultimate brain dump. Everything you had learned about becoming the greatest swordsman in history committed to paper. You laid out your philosophy on training, the fundamentals of your famous two-sword style, the psychology of battle, your specific criticisms of other schools, and finally, your thoughts on Zen and consciousness. If you know the way broadly, you wrote, you will see it in all things. Future generations of famous podcasters would get tattoos of you and quote this line to millions. You finished the Book of 5 Rings and gave it, along with all your worldly possessions, to your most loyal disciple. You were 61 years old, and you had lung cancer. On the 13th of June 1645, sensing your end was near, you took a final bath, perhaps your only one as an adult. You dressed in your finest clothes, tightened your belt, and secured your wakizashi. You sat your frail body on the ground, pulled one knee to your chest, and stared out of the cave. In one hand, your katana. In the other, your cane. You passed away peacefully, sitting in that position, observing the beauty and the order of the world.